their bios online or the invitations, but allow them to introduce themselves. And so I'm going to ask them a two-part question. Part question is one, to introduce themselves and their professional role, and how that professional role plays an advantage when someone either hires, consults, or retains them or their colleagues, and allow them to introduce themselves that way. I'm going to start off with Ms. Jerry Lazar from the CPA Managing Partner from Tri-Merge Consulting.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say thank you to Yvette with Harris Publications, Public Relations, for inviting us here this evening, especially as we try to support Black businesses and showcase our talent. So I am Jerry Lazar. I am a CPA, born and raised in South Florida. I manage Tri-Merge Consulting Group. We're a CPA firm. We also have a tax practice. We're celebrating our 16th year in business this year, so I'm really excited about that. And we assist clients with their CPA-related service needs, as well as tax, consulting, advisory. Our typical client are businesses who do work with the government, federal and local, as well as individuals and entrepreneurs as yourselves. So, and that's it.
And what's the advantage of one hiring, retaining, or consulting your company or your colleagues? What's the importance of it?
So I would say when you start a business, throughout the life cycle of your business, you're going to need an accountant. You may not necessarily need a CPA, but you definitely need an accountant to assist you in navigating taxes from a compliance standpoint. Say as you grow and develop, the planning standpoint, I think most people are introduced to taxes by filling out their 1040 on an annual basis, right? But when you start a business, the taxes is sometimes one of the largest expenses that you'll have. It's payroll taxes, it's income taxes, the business pays a tax, it's unemployment taxes. So we help clients to navigate through this new era of thinking that they have to from an accounting and tax perspective. We make it easy for you to understand. We also provide consultation where you can just come for learning and understanding. And then, of course, we do that complimentary initially, and then we kind of map out what kind of services that you need. And then if we can be that person that can assist you, we will. Sometimes a client may not necessarily need a CPA. They may just need a bookkeeper at the time. And if we're not necessarily the right person, we will forward you to other peers of ours who will be able to assist you. So we're always there for you, getting to the end of your business.
Thank you. So our next panelist I'm going to introduce is Ms. Kimber Major Morris, and she's intellectual property attorney with Major Morris Law.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. I'm so happy to be here. As Ed mentioned, I'm Kimber Major Morris, and intellectual property law is this specialized area of law that protects your creations of the mind, your copyrights, your trademarks, your patents if you're an inventor, your trade secrets if you're a company like Coca-Cola or KFC that has a secret recipe or whatever makes your secret sauce, makes your business run. So my firm just celebrated 10 years in practice in May this year.
And why is it important for someone to hire a consultant or retain, an intellectual property attorney or an attorney in whole for the business?
That's a great question. For my specific area, everyone here has a trademark if you're a business owner. You might not have a registered trademark, but the name of your company is your brand identity. So just like we have personal identity theft, there's business identity theft, where others will steal your business name, especially now with social media. So one big reason why someone might retain my services is to make sure that you can distinguish your business name, your logo, your slogan from others to eliminate confusion, especially in this internet space. So that's one reason. But and a lot of times, it's Your trademark, that space protects your business identity. Your patent protects your creation if you have invented something that has a function. And a trade secret is just what it sounds like. It's a secret. It's your recipe or something that you're not going to share. You don't register that. So this is a particular area of the law that is most of the times your business's biggest asset. So that's what keeps you separate and distinguishable from your competition.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next panelist, gentleman, the only gentleman on this seated panel. I'm the assistant to the panel. It's Mr. Asa Seeley, brand specialist, known to many of us as that branding guy. Please, Mr. Seeley.
Thank you, Ed. And thanks everyone for coming out today. Ms. Harris, thank you for putting this together. Thank you for staying on top of me for collateral and making it happen. Guys, my name is Asa Seeley. I'm a proud father, number one, and a brand specialist. I basically work with companies for over about 2 decades now, and I help them manage the perception of dealing with them. We do it through events, experiential marketing strategies, and managing their reputation online. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of international brands and a lot of destination type events, which I have really carved a niche out for myself in this great city of Miami, which we all love and adore. So I have a new best friend up here. So we're going to do some business together. Because I do get a great chance to work with startups and them coming to me with an idea and having the opportunity to walk them through idea to market and developing really strategic and impactful strategies to help them achieve their ultimate goal. We really enjoy what we do. Our slogan is your brand, our passion. And I think we maintain that through all of our efforts, and no matter what size company or corporation we represent. It's an honor to be before you, and I hope that I can be a resource going forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I'm honored to present our last panelist, but not least panelist. She is the originator of this wonderful evening, and I can call her an older friend, not because we've known each other a long time, but because she is Yvette Harris, and she is a communication strategist, and she is the president of Harris Public Relations. Please, Ms. Harris, can you introduce more about your company and your
I'm so used to being on here, so I'm excited. Thank you everyone for coming. So your question, so Harris Public Relations, I've been doing PR since 1990, and I've been on my own since 1996, and I'm only 23. I love what I do, as most of you know. So the question you asked in terms of why would somebody retain or hire myself or one of my colleagues or different stand-down audience is once you've gotten your business kind of squared away, you've got all these nuggets that these individuals have given you, you don't want to be a quiet secret. You want people to know about you. You want people to know the great story. You want people to know the people behind your company, the mission, the narrative. So that is one of the reasons that you would hire a public relations company so that that story can be told.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm going to ask a couple of other questions, and we're going to go in the same order, just to keep it simple. And, I want to ask you, can you recall an instance where a company, individual, starting a company or operating a company did not hire yourself or did not hire your colleague, just chose to go a different route, and where maybe you were called, asked to put out a fire or to come in for crisis control? Because we know now you've told us why we should use you, or why we should use your colleagues. Can you give us an instance where someone didn't use your colleague and how that went in a different way?
great idea, or you provide a great service, or you've been working for this company for all these years and you decide you want to branch out on your own. And typically, you're a small business when you're starting off, and somebody says to you, oh, you should create a corporation, right, so that you can do this business. And so you go online and you go to sunbiz.org if you're from the state of Florida, and you register a corporation and you start doing business. And a year or so goes by, and after that year goes by, you go to the person who typically does your 1040 tax return, but you just created a corporation. And so you also find out that you have this huge bill for $20,000 or $30,000, and you wonder why. Well, I'll tell you why. Well, a corporation, which we call sometimes a C Corp, is really meant for those large corporations. It's meant for the McDonald's of the world. It's meant for the Blockbuster. Blockbuster's no longer in business, but use another name. It's meant for like an IBM, right? It's meant for the mega corporations. But when you're a startup business and you're small with 1 or 2 employees, or maybe just yourself, you don't need to be structured as a C corporation. You may need to be an S corporation. And an S corporation doesn't necessarily cover a $30,000 price tag. Why? What's the difference? Well, a C corporation goes through double taxation. The corporation is taxed, and then the individuals who are shareholders of the corporation are then taxed. Well, the IRS carved a small rule for small businesses to alleviate that double taxation method, where you can ask the IRS to be treated as a small business, which we call an S corporation. So that's a mini corporation. But you would have to ask the IRS for this election. If you don't know that, and you go to Sunbiz and you create this corporation without getting the election, you're treated like a mega IBM. And so that's why you would be subjected to the double taxation. And we find a lot of companies come to us a year or 2 later after they've already created the entity on Sunbiz, and they are by default a C corporation. Until we realize, well, you know what, you only made $70,000, or you just started, you really don't have that much in revenues, you're not a $1 billion company. You need to be more of an S corp, which is not subjected to the double taxation. And we find a lot of people come to us after they've gone to their first account, or their tax person, I'd say, and find out that they have this $30,000 bill, and then they're looking for a CPA who may know more about the tax rules in terms from the business perspective, and they'll come to us and then help them figure out how to get out of that situation. If too much time hasn't passed, you can go to the IRS and you can request for relief. They have a process where you can go by and ask them, hey, I didn't realize I shouldn't have been a big C Corp. I really want to be an S, and we can then apply, if you're not past a certain deadline, to get the relief so that you can be treated as an S Corp. And that's what we find a lot of people come to us. They go online, they create these corporations, don't necessarily understand the tax implications of creating a large corporation, and then they're coming to a CPA or somebody who specializes in taxation to help them clear that $30,000 bill. So that's a great example where we get a lot of people coming to us. Go to an attorney or an accountant that specializes in taxation, specifically for businesses and not just individuals, before you start your company. And that will definitely help you win. So that's mine. Love you.
Great, love you. Ms. Morris?
Yes. Okay, so we talked about, I touched on how the trademark is your business identity, and probably one of the scariest and saddest stories that I have is a client came to me who had been sued for trademark infringement because the name of his family business that they had, that they just gone on Sunbiz, which you can do, and if no one has the exact business name that you're looking for, Sunbiz will allow you to register that name. So they came up with something that wasn't even all that clever, but it was something they might do with something, a parking lot near the airport. Well, they got sued by another parking lot that was probably 5 miles from where they were for trademark infringement because there was just a slight difference in the 2 business names. So that company had only 30 days to completely rebrand. So can you imagine, you got a parking lot, you have vehicles with your logo on it, you have signage outside, your business card, you got your Yelp reviews, everything, and all of a sudden you've lost your identity, you've lost your business identity. So that was a really expensive way to find out that you should do a comprehensive trademark search and
Mr. Seeley?
I deal with this all the time. And you find individuals with an idea coming to you already having established their own way forward, right? They go on Google, who is my biggest competitor. They figure out how to write a marketing strategy. They figure out how to create a digital campaign. They download apps to create visuals. And, but they don't really get a real sense for what it is to actually build that brand and that expectation of doing business with you, right? We have clients that come to us as a chef wanting to build a restaurant, and when we outline the way forward, they take that information, they go back, package it with what they have found on Google, and then 3 months later, you'll be contacted to help. Because once again, they didn't realize that they needed a trademark. They needed to go onto uspto.gov and do, even if it's a basic name search, and just support that we're able to give small businesses before they really enter into a competitive market space. I also deal with a lot of special event clients, and I think Suzanne, if I could attest to this, but they contact you, they ask you for a proposal, you send them a proposal, they want you to go to fight war, and tell them you need a bazooka, and they say, here's a slingshot. And the expectation is that you deliver on everything that is not even stated in the scope, because that's what they expect. You are put in a position where, as a small business especially, you really have to believe in what you're doing and going forward. Because when I first started, I took a lot of those clients. I took a lot of those clients in fear for walking away from any sort of income whatsoever, right? Because they would have found someone to do it. Why not me? I'll take the L. I'll use it as a learning experience. Back then we weren't documenting as much. Had we been in this technical space, I would have been able to leverage a lot more of the bad decisions that I made, my learning curve. And I think I would have been in a much, well, I don't want to say better position than I am now, but it may have happened a lot sooner. But anyway, I give thanks for the opportunities either way to have gone through those learning experiences. But seriously, you get to a point where you have to be able to say no as a business owner and walk away from opportunities that you may see as an opportunity, and really believe in what you are doing, and be able to listen to the specialists that you have around you. If someone is recommended, they're recommended for a reason. They're recommended by someone that you trust. And if that person's trust is with anything, then that recommendation has to be with something. And everything comes with a price tag. You know, we shop at Nordstrom, so we shop at JCPenney, and we get what we pay for. So when you come to someone like myself, and you get your invoice, know that the expectation that you have will be delivered on, and that you won't have to do this 2 and 3 times to achieve your objective. You gotta have to trust yourself, trust in your product, trust in your vision, trust in your plan, and then trust in the people that are put in your path to achieve your success. Because we all know if we move in that light, there's nothing that will stop us. Right? And we're all here in this room for a reason, to absorb the energy that we're going to receive here tonight. And it's about taking that, embracing it, and it may not be with either one of the 4 of us on this stage. But at the end of the day, you now know something that you did not know. And that's where you need to position yourself. To always be moving forward, always be growing. Preach. Preach.
So I guess the biggest misconception that I always am faced with is that most people, some people think that a press release, when they ask me to do a press release, that that's the whole implementation of their PR plan, right? So I'll get a phone call that says, oh, how much do you charge for a press release? And you do a press release. Absolutely. It's like, oh, I did research, the press release, and I send it to you. And then they call me a couple of days later, so it's not in any use for me. I haven't done anything. So you just ask me to do a press release. You know, I did a campaign. I'm going to be on NBC. I'm going to be in. I said, well, that's completely different from what you asked. So that was years ago. So now I'm very clear in terms of asking, what exactly is your goal? You want? Because I can write a press release, but the press release is not going to go anywhere unless we put together a plan and implement it and set up interviews and all that kind of stuff. So that to me is, some of the ones that I would get where they'll go running with the press release and then they realize they probably get home, they have a release and it's like, what am I going to do now? So, I always try to encourage people to do your due diligence, your research in terms of what it is that you actually want before you come to me. So then that way, when I tell you in terms of what I can do, you're very clear in terms of what that plan looks like.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm going to circle back and ask you a question of each of you, because you actually brought keywords that are specific to your profession. And I'm going to ask you to kind of dive into a little deeper to make sure we more clearly understand. Talk about, Jerry, the new tax. How has the new tax law, or has the new tax law changed for these here small businesses? And how has it, in the simplest way that you can define it?
So I'll start by saying that the tax reform bill that was just established wasn't necessarily created for small businesses. To be honest, it was created to get those large mega corporations to bring and repatriate some of that money that they've been generating overseas, right? And to get them to bring that money back over to the U.S. so that they can invest in, push the economy. The tax law also created, it reduced the tax rates for large corporations. So remember when I talked about the double taxation? Large corporations would pay up to 35%. They now have a flat rate of 21%. That's huge to a big corporation that's probably making hundreds of millions of dollars. So one of the things that small businesses were fighting for is, okay, most of the tax reform bill really appeals to large businesses. What can you create for small businesses? And so there was a carve out to allow small businesses to get this extra 20% deduction, which they're calling qualified business interest deduction. So in essence, what that means, if you're a small business, you get an extra 20% deduction off of your income tax, right? The only thing is that it's a limitation. So they didn't give it to us unlimited like they did for the large corporations. But if you didn't exceed, for example, $350,000 in earnings, you would get an additional 20% off your taxable income. So that's one of the small things that they offer to small businesses. But I must be honest in saying that a lot of the incentives were not geared towards small businesses. They were really geared towards some of the large businesses.
Understood. Thank you. So that gives a lot of clarity to us on the presumptive tax break.
That is true. And also too, it also means that small businesses have to do a better job of lobbying our elected officials. Because the large corporations, I mean, I know all of us can't get on a plane and find our state reps and go to DC, but you can write a letter. You can look for the local office here in your neighborhood. And when you start hearing about all this tax reform, write a letter to them and say, well, what incentives are you going to afford small businesses? Because what's happening is that we don't have not all of us are connected to a chamber or a large conglomerate of organizations that can go to Tallahassee or go to DC, but you can write a letter to get them to start hearing your ideas. IBM probably flew up there and had one-on-one meetings to say, okay, wait a minute, we need you to reduce our corporate tax rate, which is why it went from 35 to 21%. There wasn't that person flying up there for the small businesses, and that's why there were not a lot of incentives. So when you do hear about these big changes that are happening, find out who your local and write to all of them and tell them to go and appeal on your behalf. And that's probably the best thing that a small business can do going forward.
Cameron, you talked about trademark. So help me and help us understand. So when I have registered the name on Sundays, when I have registered the name on Facebook, when I register the name on Instagram, have I not publicly declared that it's my register, that's my brand?
No, but I can understand why people think that. One of the reasons why you should have a federal trademark, I'll tell you some of the benefits. Number one, it gives you the right to exclusive use of that particular name, logo, slogan, exclusive use. So one quick example, there was a young lady selling ear bonnets on Facebook, and someone else had a similar name and was attracting or confusing customers. Because that's all trademark law is. It's consumer protection law. You know, if you go into an Apple store, you expect to buy Apple products, right? Not Pear products. I mean, if your company that sells electronics called Pear, I don't know, but if there you see a piece of fruit and it's connected to the sale of electronics, right now you think that's Apple, right? But there could be some other fruit that somebody's going to use. But trademark law helps you to protect your space. And so to answer your question, I'm going to go back to some of the benefits. So exclusive use to use your brand identity in the public space. If you want to franchise, you might want to have exclusive use because it's going to vary from state to state. If you don't have a registered trademark, your rights are going to be limited to your geographic area. So although we're doing business online, your trademark rights and your business name, that the Harris Public Relations would just be limited to the state of Florida, wherever it's incorporated, as to where that can exercise and enforce her trademark rights. So we want to be able to have more than common law trademark rights. That's what everyone has right now without a federal trademark. We have common law rights that are limited to your small space. That doesn't protect you on Facebook. So if you see a copycat page and you don't have a trademark registration, they're going to ignore you. So in this particular case with the hair bonnets, this lady came to me and she said, well, I have a registered trademark. So not only was I allowed to get the copycat page taken down within an hour, but her domain was also snatched. So she was homeless in cyberspace. So the copycat person now had customers who were trying to contact her. They couldn't go to her website because it was no more. It was taken down. They couldn't contact her from Instagram because it was no more. So you don't want to be out here just, with no assurance that you can actually do business under the name that you picked. I like a lot of things and they sound cute, but if they belong to someone else, then we have federal laws that help us to regulate. So what do? So you start a business gate. Number one, step one is a comprehensive trademark search. And although it's not taken on Sundays, you don't know what's going on in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York. Mr. Seeley talked about the basic search on USPTO, that stands for United States Patent and Trademark Office. And so you can do a basic search, but you have to understand that that doesn't really cover much. So if I put in Kimra, my first name is Kimra. If I put that in and I don't see anything exactly like it, it doesn't mean it's not taken. Because there could be a Kimra with a C. It could be CYMRA. And so we're not taking into account the alternative spellings. The trademark office goes by how something sounds, not the R's you put it in. So we've all seen those spellings.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
But no, just because you have social media handles that you were able to grab first doesn't mean because a person has a registered trademark certificate, you go and just knock it all out of the box.
Wonderful. Mr. Seeley, you talked about marketing plans. Can you enlighten us on just a kind of broad view in that gift bag called a marketing plan? What will be the components that generally will be in that marketing plan?
So okay, you're gonna start off with your idea, right? And you're gonna go to market. And the first thing that I always try to develop is a timeline, right? And once we figure out that timeline, we start identifying milestones along that timeline. Because it boils down to your story, right? And really telling a compelling story that's engaging and captures your audience and your target market. Who are you speaking to? What are those touch points? Where do they exist? What do they like? What do they drink? When you go to Facebook and you try to build an ad set, a lot of people do real surface ad sets. They pick your age group, pick the geographical location, pick a couple of interests, and then they launch their ad because they're super excited to explore the digital world and become rich with little investment. Facebook gives you such a great opportunity to tap into different interests, different touch points as we refer to the industry, for you to really speak to that target audience. It defines your audience, and that's an integral part in building that marketing plan and strategy. It ties back into your story and it keeps you on track. Yvette and I do this. We come up with an idea, figure out when that idea is going to be a reality, and then we take you along a journey with anticipation to get to what we have as that ultimate interaction, ultimate engagement, right? Along the way, let's take for example, we are doing